I believed in forever when I married Melissa. For 5 years, we built what I thought was an unshakable foundation. Then there was Jake, her friend who always lingered too close. I never expected to overhear those words that would change everything. "You were here before him and you'll be here after he's gone," she told Jake with such certainty. She had no idea I would be the one making that prediction come true, just not in the way she imagined. Before I get into how I took back my dignity, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to walk away from someone who did not value you. I met Melissa at my college roommate's wedding reception 4 years ago. She caught my eye immediately, confidently laughing across the room in a deep blue dress that matched her eyes. When our mutual friend introduced us, the connection was instant. Our conversation flowed effortlessly as we discovered shared passions for hiking classic films and dreams of traveling to Japan someday. As a software engineer who had spent years building a stable career, I approached relationships with the same methodical dedication. But with Melissa, everything accelerated naturally. Within 3 months, we were practically inseparable. Her vibrant personality as a marketing executive complemented my more analytical nature. She brought spontaneity into my structured world, while I offered stability and thoughtful planning to her sometimes chaotic schedule. We talked about everything: our childhood dreams, career aspirations, and the future we could build together. I shared my hopes of eventually starting my own tech company while she spoke passionately about climbing the corporate ladder at her firm. Marriage and a family were part of our shared vision, something we both wanted in the next few years. Everything seemed perfectly aligned. I first met Jake at Melissa's 30th birthday celebration 6 months into our relationship. He arrived late, making a grand entrance with an expensive bottle of champagne and an oversized photo collage of their greatest hits through the years. The way he hugged her lingered just a beat too long, and the familiarity with which he navigated her apartment raised the hairs on my neck. "Ronnie, this is Jake." Melissa introduced us with a bright smile. "We go all the way back to freshman orientation. He knows all my embarrassing secrets." Not all of them, Jake winked at her. Just the ones worth knowing. Throughout the evening, Jake dominated conversations with inside jokes and references to adventures I knew nothing about. He casually dropped comments like, "Remember that night in Cancun," followed by meaningful glances that excluded everyone else. When I privately mentioned my discomfort to Melissa later that night, she dismissed it immediately. "That is just Jake being Jake," she explained with a light laugh. "We have been friends forever. He acts that way with everyone." "You are being sensitive, babe." I swallowed my concerns, not wanting to appear jealous over an old friendship. After all, we all have history before meeting our partners, right? I convinced myself that my unease was simply the natural response to meeting someone who knew Melissa in ways I was still discovering. Our wedding day arrived exactly 1 year after we met. Standing at the altar watching Melissa walk down the aisle, I felt complete certainty that we were meant to be. The ceremony was intimate and perfect, except for the moment Jake took the microphone for an unscheduled toast. To the lucky guy who finally managed to put a ring on my girl, he raised his glass eyes locked with Melissa. "Remember our pact though, Mel. No matter who comes and goes in our lives, we will always have each other." My new wife laughed it off as classic Jake, but several guests shifted uncomfortably. My father later asked who that inappropriate friend was. I brushed it aside, focusing instead on beginning our married life together. The first 2 years of marriage exceeded my expectations. We purchased a charming colonial house in a neighborhood with excellent schools, thinking ahead to the family we planned to start. My career advanced steadily, and Melissa received a significant promotion. We traveled to Italy for our first anniversary and began renovating our home together. Jake remained on the periphery, occasional texts, monthly dinner meetups, nothing that seemed threatening to our marriage. Then everything changed when Jake announced he was relocating to our city for a new job opportunity. "Isn't it amazing?" Melissa exclaimed. "It will be just like old times." Her excitement should have been my warning. Within weeks, the dynamic of our marriage shifted. Jake began dropping by unannounced during dinner. Weekend plans were interrupted by his emergencies requiring Melissa's attention. My wife's phone buzzed constantly with his messages, and increasingly she would take these calls in another room. "It is work stuff," she would explain, though. Jake worked in a completely different industry. "He is just going through a tough time with the move. He needs support right now." When I attempted to discuss reasonable boundaries, Melissa accused me of trying to control her friendships. "You knew Jake was important to me when you married me," she argued. "Why is it suddenly a problem now?" Our once peaceful home became a battleground of subtle tensions and unspoken resentments. I found myself constantly questioning whether I was indeed being unreasonable, or if my instincts were trying to warn me of something more sinister taking root in my marriage. By our third anniversary, the subtle shifts in Melissa's behavior had become impossible to ignore. The woman who once left her phone casually on the coffee table now carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Her screen would mysteriously flip face down whenever I entered the room. Password changes happened regularly, explained away as work security protocols. Late-night texts lit up our bedroom, and when I drowsily questioned them, the answer was always some variation of "just Kelly" from marketing about the client presentation. But Kelly rarely needed answers at 2 in the morning several times a week. Our shared activities dwindled one by one. The Sunday morning hikes we had enjoyed since dating were canceled for brunch with the girls that somehow always included Jake. Our tradition of trying new restaurants each month disappeared because Melissa had already been there with coworkers. Even our nightly ritual of watching a show together before bed vanished, as she increasingly retreated to the guest room to catch up on work emails until long after I had fallen asleep. Most telling was the transformation that occurred whenever Jake visited our home. Melissa, who typically lounged in comfortable clothes after work, would suddenly disappear upstairs to change, reappearing in flattering outfits with refreshed makeup. The woman who sometimes forgot to grocery shop would meticulously prepare Jake's favorite foods and keep his preferred beer stocked in our fridge. She lit candles and played music that reminded them of the good old days. The emotional chasm between us widened daily. Intimate conversations about our future family plans evaporated. When I brought up the timeline we had established for having children, Melissa would change the subject or claim she needed just a bit more time to focus on career growth. Yet her career aspirations seemed to revolve increasingly around whatever city Jake might move to next. "You are imagining things," Melissa insisted, when I gently raised concerns about her changing priorities. "Jake is just a friend. You are creating problems where none exist." This became her standard response to any question about their relationship. My observations were dismissed as paranoia. My feelings were characterized as insecurity. My requests for transparency were framed as controlling behavior. "You really need to work on your jealousy issues," she told me during one particularly heated discussion. "I cannot believe you are this threatened by a platonic friendship. No wonder my friends think you are suffocating me." The casual mention that she had been discussing our private struggles with others, likely including Jake, felt like another betrayal. Had I become the villain in the story of our marriage? The husband so irrationally jealous that friends needed to intervene? The gaslighting was so effective that I began keeping a journal to assure myself I was not losing my mind. "You used to be fun and confident," she would say, sighing dramatically. "What happened to that guy Jake even mentioned how much you have changed." The fact that they were discussing me when I was not present added another layer of discomfort to an already tense situation. How often was I the topic of their private conversations? What narrative was being constructed about me without my knowledge or input? For our 4th anniversary, I planned a surprise trip to Hawaii, something Melissa had mentioned wanting to experience since we first met. I spent months arranging the perfect itinerary, saving for upgraded accommodations, and coordinating with her office to ensure she could take the time off without raising suspicions. 3 days before our departure, Melissa announced she could not go. "A major client crisis just erupted," she explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "The entire marketing team has to work through the weekend to salvage the account. I am so sorry, babe. We will reschedule, I promise." Disappointed but understanding, I encouraged her to do what was necessary for her career. I even brought dinner to her office that Saturday night, only to find her department floor eerily quiet and dark. Her assistant, working late on another project, seemed confused by my arrival. "Melissa called out this weekend," she informed me. "Something about a personal emergency." 2 days later, our mutual friend Taylor inadvertently revealed the truth during a phone call. "It was so nice of Melissa to help Jake through that rough patch this weekend. That breakup really destroyed him." The revelation struck like a physical blow. My wife had lied about a work emergency to spend our anniversary weekend comforting Jake through a breakup. When confronted, Melissa showed little remorse. "He needed me," she said, simply as if that explained everything. "You and I can go to Hawaii any time." Jake had no one else to turn to. "What about our marriage vows?" I asked, struggling to maintain my composure. "What about the commitment we made to prioritize each other?" She shrugged, a gesture so dismissive of our relationship that it haunted me for weeks afterward. "Sometimes other people need to come first. You are being selfish not to see that." This pattern continued until everything culminated at a dinner party we hosted for our closest friends. Throughout the evening, Melissa and Jake operated as a unit, finishing each other's sentences, sharing private jokes, and displaying the easy intimacy that should have existed between a husband and wife. I felt like an outsider in my own home, watching guests exchange uncomfortable glances as Jake regaled them with stories of his adventures with my Mel. While clearing dinner plates, I overheard their conversation in the kitchen, their voices low but distinct in the momentary lull of the party. "You know you are the only constant in my life," Melissa told him, their forms silhouetted against the pantry door. "You were here before him, and you will be here after he is gone." Jake's response sealed their betrayal. "I know, Mel. I have always been your constant. Some things never change, no matter what ring you wear." They did not know I was standing there, frozen in the dining room doorway, plates still in hand. In that moment, my world imploded. 5 years of love, commitment, and building a life together reduced to a temporary inconvenience in their eternal timeline. I quietly set down the dishes and walked outside, needing air that was not poisoned by their betrayal. That night, lying beside a woman who had just relegated our marriage to a footnote in her real love story, I made a decision. I would not confront them immediately. I would watch, observe, and gather the truth about exactly what I was dealing with. For the first time since meeting Melissa, I approached my marriage like the systems engineer I was, methodically examining the patterns and connections I had previously ignored. For the next 2 weeks, I became a silent observer in my own marriage. I noticed how Melissa's lunch meetings mysteriously extended whenever Jake was available. I counted the times she mentioned his name in casual conversation, 17 times in a single day once while we were being intimate. I documented the increasing frequency of her work emergencies that always seemed to coincide with Jake's requests for her time. One evening, while Melissa was at a client dinner, I found myself alone in our home office, searching for tax documents. Behind a row of finance binders, I discovered a shoebox containing mementos I had never seen before: concert tickets, handwritten letters, and photographs of Melissa and Jake spanning years. Some photos were from periods when we were already dating or even engaged. Weekend trips I knew nothing about. Intimate moments captured while I believed she was elsewhere. The emotional toll was devastating. Each night I processed new revelations while maintaining a calm facade during the day. I lost 15 pounds in those 2 weeks. Sleep became elusive as I replayed countless interactions through this new lens of awareness. Had there ever been a time when Jake was not the invisible third party in our relationship? Had any moment of our marriage been truly ours alone? My investigation took an unexpected turn when I used our shared tablet and discovered Melissa had forgotten to log out of her cloud storage. There I found the digital evidence that completed the puzzle: a shared photo album with Jake titled "Us, the Real Story." Alongside vacation photos and selfies were screenshots of text conversations stretching back years, messages that crossed every conceivable boundary of appropriate friendship. "Missing your touch tonight," Jake had written 3 months after our wedding. "This meeting is endless." Imagining our weekend getaway instead, Melissa had responded during our anniversary dinner. "Your husband looked clueless today. If he only knew what we talk about when he is not around. Read another message from last Christmas. He is a good guy, just not my soulmate like you." We both know that my wife had replied. Message after message revealed a parallel relationship running alongside our marriage. Emotionally intimate, consistently inappropriate, and deeply disrespectful to me and our vows. While I found no explicit confirmation of physical intimacy, the emotional affair was undeniable. And in many ways, this felt like the greater betrayal. Not a momentary lapse of judgment, but a sustained, deliberate decision to maintain another relationship at the expense of our marriage. I documented everything methodically, taking screenshots and saving evidence to a private email account. Then I consulted with a divorce attorney who confirmed what I suspected. Even without physical infidelity, I had grounds for divorce based on the emotional affair that had undermined the foundation of our marriage. Armed with undeniable evidence, I finally confronted Melissa on a Sunday morning when she returned from breakfast with the girls, which her location history clearly showed had been at Jake's apartment. "We need to talk about Jake," I said calmly as she entered our kitchen. "Not this again," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "I thought we were past your jealousy issues." I placed my phone on the counter between us, screen displaying one of their more intimate exchanges. "I know everything, Melissa." The trips, the messages, the lies. Her expression cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and calculation before settling on defensive indignation. "You went through my private conversations. That is invasion of privacy." Interesting that your first concern is privacy, not the fact that you have been carrying on an emotional affair throughout our entire marriage, I observed quietly. You are overreacting, she insisted, though her voice had lost its confident edge. Jake and I have a special friendship, that is all. I have never physically cheated on you, as if that makes it better. You gave him your heart and your time while I got the leftovers. She paced our kitchen building toward the justification she had likely rehearsed for this eventual confrontation. You do not understand. Jake and I share history and connection that predates you. He understands parts of me that you never could. Yes, we are close, but that does not diminish what you and I have. What exactly do we have, Melissa? Because from where I stand, it looks like I am your security blanket, while he is your actual priority. Her expression hardened, then the pretense falling away. Fine. Yes, Jake is my soulmate. He always has been. But I chose to marry you because you offered stability and the life I thought I should want. Jake was not ready for marriage when we met. That does not mean I do not care about you. The casual cruelty of her admission stunned me into momentary silence. I was her second choice, her practical option, the reliable alternative to the man she truly wanted. If you want our marriage to continue, she declared, you need to accept that Jake has a special place in my life. He was here before you, and yes, our connection will continue regardless of what happens between us. That is non-negotiable. In that moment, hearing her ultimatum, something crystallized within me, a clarity that had been building through weeks of painful discovery. I deserved more than being someone's backup plan. I deserved to be chosen, completely, not partially accommodated, within a pre-existing emotional affair. I looked at this woman I had loved for 5 years, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. You are right about one thing, I said, with newfound calmness. Jake was here before me, and now I will make sure he is here after me too. The following morning, I began executing my strategic exit plan. While maintaining a calm exterior at home, I consulted with my attorney to ensure proper protection of my assets. I documented our financial holdings, secured important paperwork, and began transferring my personal items to a storage unit during my lunch breaks. I leased a furnished apartment across town, paying 3 months in advance to secure immediate availability. I informed my workplace about my situation, arranging to work remotely during the transition period. I withdrew half our shared savings, leaving Melissa's portion untouched, and established separate accounts at a different bank. Throughout these preparations, I maintained our normal routine at home. We ate dinner together, discussed mundane topics, and slept in the same bed. If Melissa noticed my emotional detachment, she attributed it to our unresolved argument rather than my imminent departure. Meanwhile, she continued her regular contact with Jake, seemingly confident that I had accepted her ultimatum and would eventually adapt to her terms. Each night, I processed my grief privately. The death of our marriage, the betrayal of trust, the loss of the future we had planned together. I allowed myself 1 hour of emotional release each evening, usually in my car during lunch breaks, then returned to the methodical execution of my plan. Friends noticed my weight loss and distraction, but I deflected concerns with vague references to work stress. Only my closest friend Michael knew the full truth, offering his guest room and emotional support whenever needed. His steady presence became my anchor during those turbulent weeks. The day I served Melissa with divorce papers was ordinary in every other respect. She had left for work that morning with a perfunctory kiss on my cheek, completely unaware that I had already moved essential belongings to my new apartment. The server delivered the papers to her office around noon, a deliberate choice to avoid a scene in our home and to ensure she could not immediately run to Jake for support. She called 17 times in the 3 hours that followed. I let each call go to voicemail, listening later to her progression from shock to anger to desperate bargaining. By evening, when she burst into our house, I was calmly sitting at the kitchen table with a final stack of documents requiring her signature. "What is this?" she demanded, divorce papers clutched in her trembling hand. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious," I replied evenly. "I have outlined a fair division of assets. My attorney can work with yours to finalize details." Because of Jake, her incredulity seemed genuine, as if she truly could not comprehend my decision. "You are throwing away our marriage over a friendship." "Not a friendship, Melissa. An emotional affair that has been ongoing since before our wedding day. And not because of Jake. Because you consistently chose him over me and our marriage." "I never physically cheated," she shouted, falling back on her primary defense. "Fidelity involves more than just your body. You gave him your heart, your time, your loyalty, everything that should have been invested in our marriage. Panic replaced anger as reality finally penetrated. "We can fix this," she insisted, suddenly conciliatory. "I will create boundaries with Jake. I will go to counseling. Please, Ronnie, do not throw away everything we built." The irony of her sudden willingness to establish boundaries was not lost on me. For years, my request for the same had been dismissed as controlling and insecure. Only the concrete threat of losing her comfortable life had made her reconsider, not genuine remorse or love for me. "Where is Jake now?" I asked quietly. Her expression faltered. "What do you mean? You just received devastating news. Normally he would be your first call. Where is your constant, your soulmate, in your moment of crisis?" Her silence confirmed what I suspected. Jake had disappeared when things became difficult. The man who had been so eager to share the easy, fun moments with my wife was nowhere to be found when real emotional support was needed. He is in meetings today," she finally mumbled. "Of course he is," I nodded, unsurprised. "Interesting how your constant vanishes when things get complicated." That evening, I moved the last of my belongings to my new apartment. Melissa alternated between tearful pleas and bitter accusations, finally resorting to calling our friends to intervene. Most were unaware of the situation, but those who had witnessed Jake's inappropriate behavior over the years understood my position. Several later confessed they had wanted to warn me but feared overstepping. In the weeks that followed, Melissa launched a campaign to salvage her reputation. She portrayed herself as blindsided and abandoned, conveniently omitting the years of emotional betrayal. She leveraged mutual friends to plead her case and attempted to delay divorce proceedings with promises of change. Most surprisingly, Jake indeed vanished from her side during this tumultuous period. When faced with the possibility of becoming Melissa's primary emotional support rather than her exciting escape from reality, he suddenly developed commitment issues and suggested they take a break until things settle down. The soulmate who promised to be there after I was gone disappeared precisely when she needed him most. My attorney documented this abandonment, noting it strengthened our case regarding the emotional affair. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life one day at a time. I established new routines in my apartment. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I rediscovered passion for hobbies that had fallen by the wayside. And most importantly, I began weekly sessions with a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. "You are not responsible for her choices," my therapist emphasized during one particularly difficult session. "Nothing you did or did not do caused her to maintain this inappropriate relationship." This simple truth became my mantra during dark moments when self-doubt crept in. I had not been perfect, but I had been faithful, committed, and genuine in my love. I deserved the same in return. The divorce was finalized 6 months later, with a settlement that most observers considered extremely fair despite the circumstances. I retained our house but sold it immediately, wanting no part of a space tainted by betrayal. Melissa received an equitable financial settlement that recognized her contributions to our marriage despite her infidelity. I insisted on this fairness, not for her sake but for my own peace of mind and clean conscience. By the 1-year anniversary of our separation, I had established a new normal. My career flourished as I channeled energy previously spent managing my dysfunctional marriage into creative projects. I developed a close circle of authentic friendships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I even began tentatively dating again, approaching relationships with greater wisdom and clearer boundaries. Through mutual friends, I occasionally heard updates about Melissa. After Jake's disappearance during her divorce crisis, she had desperately tried to rekindle their relationship, only to discover he had begun seeing someone else. The constant in her life had proven as inconstant as her vows to me. Last I heard, she was transferring to another office location after workplace relationships became strained due to her reputation for drama. Looking back now, I realized that her prediction came true, but not as she intended. Jake indeed was there before me and after I was gone, but only briefly after, and not in the way she had imagined. Instead of being her lasting soulmate, he became another painful lesson in her pattern of valuing fantasy over reality. The most important lesson I learned is that sometimes true self-respect requires walking away. Loving someone does not mean accepting betrayal as your due. Real love, whether from a partner, friends, or yourself, uplifts rather than diminishes. It adds value rather than extracts it. It respects boundaries rather than dismisses them. If you are watching this and recognizing patterns from your own relationship, remember you deserve to be someone's active choice, not their convenient option. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to walk away from someone who did not value you? Leave a comment below sharing what helped you find the strength to choose yourself. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that choosing self-respect is not selfish, it is essential. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most loving choice you can make is loving yourself enough to leave.